Are you ready?
Yeah, we're all ready. All right, we're all ready. All right, we're ready.
You can tell I'm new to this. All right. I'd like to call to order the November 5th, 2020 Board of Adjustment meeting. Could I get a roll call, please?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Kays is absent. Brink,
Here.
Dargits Johnson,
Here.
Ford,
She's flashing.
Ford.
Hello?
Hi.
There she is.
We're just calling roll, Diana.
Oh, this is the first word I've heard from you.
Oh.
Here.
I apologize. I think we were muted.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you. Aletsky,
Present.
Spire,
Here.
Culhane,
Here.
Hanson. Hanson is absent.
So we have a quorum, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Moving on to item number 3 will be approval of the minutes of the October 22nd, 2020 meeting. Could I get a motion in a second, please?
I'll make that motion to approve the minutes. Second.
I've got a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask for a roll call vote.
Aletsky,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Culhane,
Yes.
Dargis Johnson,
Yes.
Spire,
Yes.
and Brink.
Yes.
Minutes are approved.
All right, moving on to the regular agenda, 4A is board consideration of a conditional use request in the C3 Highway Commercial District for a caretaker's resident on the property located at 1638 13th Avenue Southeast. Stacy, can you fill us in some more?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to bring it up on the map here. Okay, this is the subject property right here. Might need to share my screen, I think. Okay. So this is a conditional use request. It is at 1638 13th Avenue Southeast. The applicant is seeking a conditional use for a caretaker's residence in the C3 district. The applicant is proposing to convert 32 feet of the existing contractor shop into a caretaker's residence. The north 64 feet of the building will remain as a contractor shop. The owner currently uses a contractor shop for his snow removal, concrete sealing, and air duct cleaning business. So the proposed caretaker's unit would allow him immediate access to his equipment and provide for increased security. The City Council approved an amendment to the zoning ordinance to allow caretaker residences as a conditional use within the C3 district, and that amendment did become effective on October 30th. Thus allowing the applicant the opportunity to apply this evening. The ordinance defines a caretaker's residence as a single-family dwelling unit which will be considered an accessory use to the primary business. The individual residing at this residence must own or be employed by the business, and no home occupations will be allowed. With that, the fire department will require the building to be fully sprinkled, and we already have a waiver of right to protest on this particular site. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from the board?
This is Ford. I'm just wondering, are there going to be any children living here?
I'll open the public hearing if the applicant's here and is to speak on behalf, or if anyone's here to speak against it. You can feel free to come up to the mic, or especially to answer that question. And please state your name for the record, please.
Brandon Bowling. Yep. That's Brandon Bowling. There will not be. I still have a home in Northridge Edition. It'd be just for me when I, during the busy times, I can just kind of stay there and not have to worry about when I'm getting up at midnight or whatever time to go move snow.
So you don't intend on it being a permanent residence, it's just
Correct.
as needed basis, you would like the
Yep.
opportunity to use it?
Correct.
And in there, you're gonna have like an efficiency apartment with a restroom, a kitchenette, living room,
Correct.
bedroom combination type deal?
Yep.
Okay.
I have a question for Chip, our fire marshal. I know caretaker residence is something that the fire department likes to know about, and do you see any issues with this particular request, or do you have any concerns?
Chip, Fire Marshal. No, I don't have any concerns with this. It's gonna, everything when he comes through and goes for the building permit, at that time, the staff and I will work together on making sure all the requirements are met and for separation for the distance. And, we look at it just like your single-family house, you have to have a separation between your living quarters and your sleeping area. It'd be the same way with a caretaker. So we'll cover all the safety requirements and all the code requirements at the time he draws a building permit.
Thank you for that. Yeah, and this is, kind of why we added this to our ordinance. We've had requests similar to this in the I zones and, in the C zones in the past about, people that don't really intend to live at their business, but yet might have hours of operation that are, maybe conducive to spend the night there occasionally, and they just want to make sure if they're doing that legally and per our ordinances.
But aren't there some people that already have this, that their full-time home is in that area, in the C3 or I commercial?
Yeah, we've approved this in the I zone before, and it's a new thing for the C3 zone, but may exist, yeah. Do we have any other questions for the applicant as he's still sitting at the podium? Hearing none, is there anyone else either here or on the interwebs that would like to speak on behalf or against this application?
The Fire Marshal again, Chip Primus. I have a question on, Diane, you were asking a question about kids. Is there something that, you're wondering if there's gonna be kids at this area? And just for my point of view, I'd like to know where you're going with that, and just so, when we're making decisions, and so I can tell the public when somebody brings this idea up, what I can tell them to help them out.
Well, and this is Brandy. And so it is covered in the definitions. So if it does become like a complaint issue, that's something that we could fall back on as far as enforcement. So it is supposed to be the owner, operator, or their employee.
Yes, and it does.
With no children?
It does say individual.
Okay,
Yes.
so but no kids then? Okay, but their wife could or husband could, right? Their spouse?
It states individual within the definition.
Oh, okay.
So I
So that-
assume it'll be just a one bedroom then?
No, it's probably gonna be at least 2. Cause I do have employees. And my kids, by the way, are there a lot. I mean, right now. Just because that's where all their toys are, their 4-wheelers, their dirt bikes, their, we spend a lot of time there. Snowmobiles.
So, okay, this staff then is how, if we're putting 2-bedroom units in there and they're supposed to be just the caretaker, how are we allowing that?
By definition, and had a conversation with Brandon about this, and it is an individual, so it really should just be a unit, like one bedroom. And, you know, like any industrial or commercial district, I guess if you have children and you bring them there on whatever, it's hard to regulate that. But as far as when we're allowing, you know, because we want people to to live in residential neighborhoods. So the purpose of the caretaker's residence isn't to encourage people living in a commercial or industrial district. Did that answer your question?
Well, yes and no. I mean, are we going to run around and police that? I mean, at the time of construction, it should only be allowed to build one bedroom. Correct? I mean, if that's
Right.
what the ordinance reads, then that's, you know,
Right.
that's what should be built, and it should be inspected that way by the building inspector.
Right.
That's where at that time, when we do the building permit, we'll review the plan and what he wants to do.
Right. I mean, I get your kids are going to be there, and I appreciate what, you know, but the reason that, you know, just the fact that, like I said, we don't want people living there year-round type of thing, I mean, it's just if that's what our ordinance reads, then that's what we need to, you know, enforce.
Yeah, and I guess for my clarity, Director Von Eye speaking here, have we seen anything to the contrary? Have we had plans submitted yet that show more than one single-family dwelling unit being
No.
proposed?
No, not
Okay.
at this time.
Okay, great. So we will definitely, as a staff, ensure that the definition is met through that building plan review, the permit issuance, that a single-family dwelling unit would be,
An
The only
individual,
thing we
an
would need-
individual dwelling unit, right? Not single family, but individual dwelling unit? Is that what
yeah,
it says?
the way that the caretaker's residence definition actually says a single-family dwelling unit, which will be considered an accessory use to the primary business. The individual residing at this residence must own or be employed by the business. No home occupations will be allowed. So we would look at the single-family dwelling unit and how we define that in our ordinances. I haven't looked to see if we further define that, but that's what we would base the permit issuance on, is to ensure that we're following those guidelines.
Then for inspection, fire marshal, when we're doing inspection, then we will walk through there and ensure that nothing was added on later on after the building permit. That's how we try to police it.
Are there any other questions or comments, or anyone else that wishes to speak? The public hearing is still open.
This is Ford. I guess I'm confused by the single-family dwelling unit. So what specifically does that mean in relation to this request?
So as Heath alluded to, when you look up single-family dwelling, it tells you to see detached, and then that definition is a dwelling which is designed for and occupied by not more than one family and is surrounded by yards and is not attached to any other dwelling by any means. So the definition of a caretaker's residence does feel a little contradicting.
Yes, it does. So what will we do about that?
When we make a motion, can we say one bedroom, one individual?
Yes, you certainly can.
Okay.
Hearing no other comments and no one else, I'll close the public hearing and I'll look to the board to make a motion.
I would like to make a motion to approve this, this request with, as a one-bedroom individual unit that will meet all of the zoning requirements.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? I would just like to say I appreciate the staff already iterating that this has a waiver of the right to protest. I know whenever we do something in this area of town where there isn't curb and gutter and stuff, I like to make sure we have those included. So it sounds like this property already has one, so thank you, staff, for providing that information.
You're welcome.
Are there any other comments or discussions from the board?
Chair, Liam Culhane, I'd make a substitute motion to approve as amended, or excuse me, as proposed without any restrictions.
We have a substitute motion. Do we have a substitute second?
Liam, would you mind explaining?
I've got a lot of different thoughts on this. I guess I don't want to go into a ton of detail or belabor the point. It doesn't sound like he's residing there anyways. You know, it's different if he's moving his entire family in there, and this is where they're living. Not only that, you know, the conditional use caretaker definition does say single family unit. Seems to be indicative of, I don't know, I understand the contradictions, but I just don't see the need to designate it as a single room. And if he's indicating that he's going to have employees stay there, I don't see the need for the limitation.
But what would happen if, let's say, 5 years down the road, someone says to Brandon, hey, I'm going to give you an offer you cannot refuse, and Brandon sells it to a person with a family, and they said, hey, we're a family, and we want the school bus to stop out here and pick up our kids?
Well, I think at that point, I mean, I guess we should consider long and hard whether or not we want caretaker residences in the C3. And am I missing something here? Didn't we talk about this, either this space or something similar recently?
Yes, we did talk about this particular property. The applicant did apply. I believe it was back in August. He submitted for an apartment use, and that was denied by the board. However, he was looking more for a caretaker's residence, so he had the opportunity, or has the opportunity, to reapply now as the ordinance was amended to allow for caretaker's residences within the C3 district.
Okay, I appreciate that, Stacy.
You're welcome.
Didn't we have a motion or something like 2 meetings ago about not this property, but a different property, and it was just a one bed, a husband and wife type, wasn't it? And then we have Sheila and Brian Nygaard. Theirs is just 1 bedroom, I think.
Right. Well, and just to back up a step, and so then this application is what initiated that ordinance amendment to come through for allowing caretaker, or to add caretaker's residences as a conditional use in the C3 district, means that we only had it in the I1. But contractor shops are also allowed in the C3 as well as I1. So it made sense to make that amendment. I think that the definition, it needs to be cleaned up. And so we can, you know, if it is individual or if it's adults, I don't know. But just, it'll be worth more looking into it as far as staff discussion following this. And it is good to get your input on what you're thinking. I mean, do you think it's appropriate for an adult couple or just a individual? I mean, it makes it really, it gets really hard to regulate.
Chair.
Yes, Liam.
I mean, I don't want the board to think I'm excited about having kids there or the possibility of there being children there, because I think that would be, you know, I don't think that's really appropriate, but especially given sort of the lay of the land there. I don't know if limiting it to a single bed accomplishes that or not. Perhaps it does.
Well, we do have a substitute motion, and we still haven't gotten a substitute second. Is there anyone that wants to do a second on Mr. Culhane's motion? Hearing none, I'll say that one failed on consideration, and then I guess any other further discussion on the motion that we have on the table? And hearing none there, I'll ask for a roll call vote, please, Stacy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Aletsky,
Yes.
Ford,
Yes.
Culhane,
Yes.
Dargits Johnson,
Yes.
Spire,
Yes.
Brink.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, moving on to item number 5 is open public comment. Did we receive any, Stacy?
No,
Okay, then I'll continue to move on to new business. Do you have any new business?
I do not.
Then I'll move on to item number 7, old business. Do we have any old business?
Not that I'm aware of.
Ford does.
Go ahead.
I see on our agenda at the bottom under, they've included here the things that Blake had asked for, and it's very helpful. But I'm looking at the voting requirements statement, and it says 2/3 of the members of the board shall be necessary to decide in favor of an applicant. And it doesn't specify if that's 2/3 of the members in total or 2/3 of the members present and voting. I think that's a little confusing to someone who might just be looking at that for the first time.
Right, I could see that, Diana. And so this is actually, so I added this in here, and then I'm glad that you appreciated it and that you looked through it and were able to give some feedback too, because that I left a little open-ended just at this time because we have that ordinance amendment coming through, which will actually go for second reading on December 7th. It should have been this last one, but for notice purposes. So then that will be for conditional uses, it will be present and voting, and then for variances, it will remain 2/3 of the members, of the whole membership. And so then I will specify that further. But I just had it yet just because right now it is just consistent for both, that it is just 2/3 of the members, and there's nothing to do with the present and voting yet until that ordinance amendment is approved and effective.
Thanks, Brandy.
Yes.
All right, thank you for that, Diana. Is there any other old business? Hearing none, I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Can I get a roll call vote?
Sure. Ford,
Yes.
Culhane,
Yes.
Aletsky,
Yes.
Dargits Johnson,
Yes.
Spire,
Yes.
Brink.
Yes. Motion passes. We are adjourned. We'll start planning commission whenever we're ready. It'll take a few minutes.